So the next story is the main meat that I want to cover this week. Um, it's a Trinidad and Tobago Express article dated the 19th of the 1st, 2023. And here the title, Wicked and Heartless. Let's get into this one. It's by K. Mary Fletcher. Tensions ran high at the Regulated Industries Commission public consultation on the proposed electricity rate increase on Tuesday as dozens of citizens rejected the RIC's recommendations. What was intended to be the RIC's first open call to the public and customers of electricity provider TNTEC to offer recommendations and to give a preview of what TNTEC's new monthly bill could look like quickly turned into a shouting match as people blasted TNTEC service and the RIC. Wicked, heartless, and unnecessary was how several people described the RIC's proposal to increase rates at every tier, introduce a fourth tier, increase customers' charges, and move from a bi-monthly to a monthly billing system. I think a lot of people, yeah. When the floor was open to the public at the Center of Excellence Mokoya, many people stressed the poor timing to the increased rates as the cost of living was already increasingly high. I think a lot of people would agree with that statement here in Trinidad and Tobago. Some said the new rates would be particularly difficult for pensioners and the unemployed. First, there should be a halt to the proposed increase. And others urged the RIC to recommend better management at the Commission, as customers should not have to pay increased rates while still receiving poor service. Now, we're going to come back to that. That is the meat of what we're going to discuss today. This included frequent outages, no compensation for damaged property when there are outages, and instances of high voltage and when TNTEC conducts business on private property. So then the article goes in and people, they give some views which were expressed by different people who attended. Some suggestions were made, talking about TNTEC should find cheaper sources of production. I think it was mentioned the incorporation of solar power for residential use. Apologies for the wind in the background and things like that. But this is what stood out to me the most in this article here. I read. And some people even called out the RIC for not ensuring that the government pay their outstanding debt to TNTEC, which some said they believe prompted the rate increase, as the government owes millions of dollars to TNTEC. In response, RIC Executive Director Glenn Kahn said, TNTEC has costs that they have to meet in order to provide you with good service. They have requested $29.1 billion. We said that is not an efficient cost. RIC is saying that is not an efficient cost. We have reduced that by over $2 billion because we want to transfer only the efficient cost of the customers. Okay, problem. So we have established what will be an efficient cost that provides you with service. If TNTEC does not collect those resources, the service cannot improve from where it is. And this is a very important statement. I'm also going to come back and link it to what I said about the quality of the service. Additionally, the RIC reminded that TNTEC's last rate increase was 2006, and as such, a review for an increase was long overdue. Now, this is just my thoughts now, my analysis coming in here now. So, based on this last statement here by the RIC person, Mr. Khan, several things popped up to me. 3 things popped up to me. One, you have an increase in the quality of the service. We're talking about the quality of the service, so increasing the quality of the service. 2, an increase in rates, right? And 3, the length of time between rate increases. Now let me just give my thoughts at this point here, because I believe there is a disconnect in trying to, what I believe is trying to be connected, right? There's a bit of a disconnect. If I had to give my own analysis, not saying that it is accurate or correct or I'm certain this is what the person means, but if I had to give my own analysis of what is being said in that statement that I just read from Mr. Khan, one could assume that, or the impression that I would have gotten is that the buck is being passed to the government and the buck stops there. Meaning that you have a recommendation being made by TNTech for a certain amount of funding. It was reviewed by the RIC. The RIC said, no, this is what we think is efficient. And basically, if this service provider does not get what they are asking for, then the service can't improve. So the buck stops with the state. But is this true? And when I heard that statement, I tell myself, I need to do a little bit more further reading. And I said, well, first and foremost, I need to understand what the mandate of the RIC is. Why do they exist? So I went online and I found the Regulated Industry Commissions Act, the actual act that governs the establishment and the purpose of the RIC and what gives the RIC its powers to do what it is it has to do. And going on to the act, I was able to go down to part 2, section 6, which lists a lot of the functions of the RIC. And indeed, right now, one of the functions is that the RIC is supposed to regularly consult with the public to get information from the public about, and to negotiate with the public reasonable rate hikes and to get feedback on the quality of service and all these different things. And what stood out to me, firstly from the Act, was Part 2, Section 6, subsection 1C, which is the RIC, is to ensure as far as reasonably practicable that the service provided by a service provider operating under prudent and efficient management will be on terms that will allow the service provider to earn sufficient return to finance necessary investment. Now, unless I'm wrong, unless I'm misinterpreting this, basically I'm thinking what this saying is the service provider needs financing and needs to implement means to gain financing for it to give an efficient service to the public. But if you go further down, there's another section that says in part 2, section 6, subsection 3A, in the performance of its functions, the Commission shall have regard to the public interest and in particular, A, maximum efficiency in the use and allocation of resources to ensure as far as is reasonably practicable that services are reliable and provided at the lowest possible cost. I'll read that last part again. To maximum efficiency in the use and allocation of resources to ensure as far as is reasonably practicable that services are reliable and provided at the lowest cost. Now, to me, This is why it is I want to believe that whole meeting that they tried to have this week going here ended up into a shouting match. And I'm wondering if this is what is causing the disconnect that I am seeing. For TNTech to do its job, it needs money from the state. It needs money from the citizens. That is why we all pay an electric bill, and that is why the government gives TNTech a certain amount of money. But most important, it is the Regulating Industries Commission, it is the RIC's role to ensure that the service provider provides first and foremost a reliable service at the lowest possible cost. So a couple things jump out to me. First and foremost, when the gentleman Khan states that, oh, and by the way, the last rate increase was in 2006. To me, that is not very important. To me, that is neither here nor there, because the mandate of the RIC and to ensure what the service provider does is to provide the lowest cost possible. So if between 2006 and now we were getting the lowest cost possible, I don't think that should be put into the face of the public in a way to say, well, you know, it's a long time oil and gas increase, so, you know, all I don't understand. And at least that's how it kind of come across to me. I don't think that is right. Because your job is to ensure that we get the lowest cost possible. But more importantly, it is the RIC's job, based on my understanding of what I read in the Act, to ensure that the service provider provides a reliable service. A reliable service. Now, if the people, which I'm assuming what caused the shouting match and whatnot there, believe they're not getting a reliable service, and I want to believe if you ask other people across Trinidad and Tobago, they may feel the same way. If they're not getting a reliable service to begin, how could you come and now ask for an increase? And I'm using the word reliable and constantly repeating that word because that is what is written in the Act. So if people feel they're not getting a reliable / quality service, to come and ask for more money to pay for a service that fundamentally or at its lowest level, people, according to what I read in the article, according to some people I'm sure I've talked to and would say, the service is not reliable. So you're going to pay more money for a service that at this point in time is viewed to be unreliable. That is what is causing the disconnect. That is what it is causing the people to shout and to rile up in that meeting. That is just my thoughts. And it is the RIC's job to ensure that the service provider provides a reliable service. So between 2000, let me just go in recent times. So between the last rate hike, which was supposed to give TNTech the financing to provide an efficient service, people are still complaining the service is unreliable. And now, in order to continue the service, which people view as unreliable, you have to pay more money. That, I think that is why it is causing the problem. So I think several people need to go back to the drawing board. I think if we had the best electricity service in the world, it might have been much different conversation where people may have been more flexible to say, hey, alright, well, we get the best service in the world already, so if we had to maintain it, we might have to put out a little bit more. Again, that's just an assumption on my part, just speculation. But I'm thinking people might have been maybe a little bit more flexible then. But as things are now, that is a hard sell. So I believe maybe the RIC, I believe the TNTech And the state need to go back to the drawing board, and with what we have now, ensure that we have a reliable service first to begin at the lowest possible cost, I'm assuming, which is what it at now, and then approach the public if required for a rate increase. Just my thoughts.